My name's Susi Doring. I was born in El Paso, Texas, and I live in Israel, Jerusalem. Or Jerusalem, not Israel. Jerusalem. Are we being PC?
Whatever you want to be.
I was born in El Paso, Texas. My mother is Filipino from the Pangasinan province of the Philippines. And my father was from Berlin. He passed a few years ago. So my brother and I were born in El Paso, Texas, first-generation Americans. We moved to Germany, and then we came back to El Paso to grow up in Tulsa from 1987 and onwards. And other than that, I had my first existential crisis at 5.5. I remember I was my mom was walking me to preschool, and I looked at my hand, and I was like, my hand's my hand, and it's attached to my body, but what is this? Like, what is the relationship between my eyes and my hand, and why am I here? And it just opened this, like, floodgate of, like, existing and wondering, like, how I could look at something and it be a part of my body. These things, and I couldn't put it into words. I just remember, like, as a little kid, just like staring at my hand and trying to understand, like, all of these thoughts. And I think from then on, coming from my mother being Catholic and my father being, I would say he was agnostic, if you would define his beliefs. I think from then on, it was trying to understand how I could define my understanding of my place in this world and how I can get along with it and have a relationship with it.
What was your, did you have any concept of God as a child? And if so, what was it?
I think there was, because of my lack of understanding in religion and because of how Christianity was presented to me growing up in Oklahoma, which was a Bible Belt, there was a lot of fear. Things were very storybook, I think, in my head. I don't know if I interpreted it, but in my head there was a heaven and there was a hell. And all of these things were they weren't real to me. They were like these stories that you feared and these things. But it was also, I think, a lot of my, as much as that was probably more of a social attitude I had towards it. But at home, I think there was a lot of tradition. My grandmother at an early age wrote down all of the prayers and taped it to my bed, and we said them together. So it wasn't, but I don't think I understood anything more than there was like this nice tradition, and there was this belief that gave you a certain level of hope no matter what you did, and that faith is important in tradition and things like that. I was raised Catholic. I was actually baptized as a Lutheran. I was raised very traditionally in Catholicism, and there wasn't a lot of academic stimulation for me that I could understand a religion academically, and I needed that logic to have more faith in the religion. So wait, the question was, start with the...
Well, just what were you raised in, and how did you come to
Judaism?
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if Arnie told you, I went through a couple of deaths in 2005. And I left for the Peace Corps before that, and I guess I was 24 years old, and I knew then I was searching for a religion that best suited me. I respected Catholicism a lot, but there was a big part of me that didn't make any sense because of like the Mashiach thing, and it's like, how could he die and not be back? And if he dies and comes back and it's been this amount of years, like this makes no sense, and this seems like a lot of storytelling to me. I needed a religion that had like substance, that had like thousands of years of history and people that analyzed it. And I didn't find that in Christianity. I'm sure you can find it in Christianity, but how I looked for it, I couldn't find it. And then when I went to Thailand, I thought, well, maybe Buddhism, you know, peaceful, the monks are cool. I like Thailand. You know, maybe I'll learn to meditate and eat mangoes and everything will be great. And when I went out to Thailand, I really respected Buddhism, but more as a philosophy versus a religion. So I came back, and after going through, you know, the tragedies of 2005 that I experienced, at that time, the need for a religion was dire to my existence as a person, because I kind of felt that if I couldn't believe in God, then I couldn't believe in life. I didn't know how to inspire myself without, you know, a religion, because if you don't believe in God, then what's the point of living if there's no hope and there's no belief that all of these things happen and it makes you stronger, and it's, you know, it, you know, makes you want to be that better person and continue on and give goodness. And then when I came to Israel, a rabbi turned to me and he said, listen, Susie, it's not about what you go through in life, it's about how you deal with it. Judaism will, or what he said, and also what I found, is that with Judaism, I'm able to build a relationship with everything I do. And I needed that. I needed to have a relationship with nature and with these things, because after the tragedies, even a chair didn't seem the same to me anymore. Like anything that seemed so normal before grief suddenly like turns in your head. And Judaism gave me the ability to build relationships again with the things around me and live in a way that puts meaning into everything I did, which I really, really needed. And the more I learned about it, it was so almost so easy. Like conversion isn't supposed to be that easy, and it's a complete lifestyle change. But because I believed in it, and I didn't feel like I changed when I became Jewish. I just kind of felt like I was continuing like what was meant for me to be a Jew. Like I just had to make it official so that, you know, I could stick around and be socially accepted. I was interested in Judaism because I met an Israeli who we were planning to get married, and he's the one that passed in 2005. So I became interested in Judaism through him. I was lightly interested before, but you know, nothing came of it. And basically in Thailand, I started reading all of these Jewish books and Jewish fiction and things like that, and learning the holidays as they came through. And then his name was Tsiki Ayal, so I'll refer to him as Tsiki. After Tsiki died, he already spoke to his rabbis about us getting married and these things, because he was in the army when he died, in Miluim. And so when I came here, I wasn't sure I wanted to convert. And even when I did decide to convert after that, I didn't realize how in-depth Judaism could be. But what I did is I kind of lived my life in 6-month intervals. Like I came to Israel, I started studying Hebrew, and I was like, okay, I'll keep kosher. So I started keeping kosher, not so bad, great, that's pretty easy in this country. After that, I would try keeping Shabbat more and seeing how I felt about it, very, very slowly. And I gave myself about 6 months before I decided to convert and to approach the rabbinical court in Jerusalem. And after that, they accepted, you know, my request. But then I decided I didn't want to do such a group conversion. I didn't want to go to classes with 30 people who are also converting. Like I wanted a very intimate religious conversion. And I also felt that if I did a very, very Orthodox conversion, then I can find my medium. Like I can know this extreme view and then find my middle, versus doing a lighter conversion and not knowing, you know, like maybe the most extreme view. It's just mostly my personality versus anything. So I chose to do that, and I studied for a year, 3 times a week. And after a year, I converted, and then it took me another year to make Aliyah. And in that, I still had to go back to like the Tel Aviv Rabbanut and Yerushalayim Rabbanut because I did a private conversion. So I had to get it reapproved. And so it took another year after that. And then now I'm all done.
So when you first met Ziki in Thailand, you had already been thinking about Judaism, or was it a kind of a...
I looked into it because I had a Jewish neighbor, and she always did shiurim, like during the week at her house. And I was kind of like, before I left for the Peace Corps, I was definitely in the mindset of, I want to find a religion. Like, I started going back to church on Sundays to try to get that back, because I felt for many years I was kind of living just this life without like thinking about God too much, and I wanted to create more tradition for myself. So I started going with a friend before I left for the Peace Corps to church, like Catholic church, and thinking about maybe I should officially convert to Catholicism. And then after a few weeks, I was like, it's comfortable because I'm used to it, but I don't think it's necessarily me. And I looked into Judaism, but not too hard, because I really, compared to what I know now, obviously, like what I thought what Judaism was is nothing, you know, to the level of the studies that I've done now and what I've come to understand, and being part of a religion where literally you can study every week of your entire life and still like just skim, you know, the water. And I think that's what I like. It's like the ever-changing religion. You can always learn something new. There's always something new to think about. There's always some new topic to argue, to check, to have discussions with. And it is true. It's, you know, and for the first time I was able to look at the Bible and read a passage each year and interpret it completely differently. And I didn't understand that mentality, that you could read Genesis and every time you read it has a different meaning, or you see some word in it that never resonated with you before. And Judaism has really taught me to look at things from all different angles, from all different emotions, and realize that this text can, you know, it melts into you at different points in your life, so you can grow with it. I have this very interesting relationship with God because I felt like he kind of dragged me through the mud a couple years ago. And I felt like almost a victim, but not in like a sorry way. Like it was like a chosen victim. And I do believe that everyone has, you know, this destiny, but I also believe that God gives everyone a choice to choose that destiny. You know, you can, like, there's these two paths and you choose right or left. And from that on, you're creating this new tree of things. But my concept of God is very, I guess when I think about it, I think of a lot of like, maybe it's Kabbalistic. Is that the right way to say it? It's like I see a lot of energy. Like the world is full of these energies and everything's intertwined into this web. And for everything to flow smoothly, like in God's world, you have to act and behave in a certain way, you know, give off enough positive energy so that everything flows from that and the world's in order. I don't think... In my head, like, I don't even think, you know, from growing up with Christianity, you have like this concept of a heaven and this concept of a hell. And I always believed naturally that there's no such thing as hell because, you know, you can think of the worst thing to happen and it's happened in this world. Like, what gets worse than that? But at the same time, I think the afterlife, I think sometimes it goes from feeling like spirits are reincarnated into certain people or certain elements of their spirits are. But I guess at the end of the day, it's, you know, God is like this energy life force that keeps recycling itself in the world, I would say.
When you think back on the years of you being in Thailand and Siki's death, and it sounds like you experienced another...
My father's a few weeks before that death.
What what when you look back on that time, what was happening for you spiritually? Was it a time of faith? Was it a time of questioning? What was your...
I lived with Suki's family after he passed away and after my father passed away. And it was interesting to witness people's grief because half of the people will turn God away completely and just say, you did this to me, therefore I won't have a relationship with you, And that happened in the household. And some of us, needed more faith and understanding of God to get through the painful time. So after Tsuki died, I think grief does something to you. It opens some part of your brain, and it does something. It says Aviva Zornberg. Is that her name? Professor, yeah. She said once in a lecture, which I went to all of her lectures that year, and she said the feelings of grief is the closest thing to God, because your soul is ripped open. You're not who you are anymore. Your whole concept of life around you and what is normal is completely inside out. And you're so vulnerable to everything. And you're so sensitive to things. When you're in severe grief, you can really feel what people are feeling and how they look at you and the meaning behind their eyes and what they're, thinking. And I felt, because of that grief, I felt really close to God. I could sit on the beach and I could actually, I literally, and I don't know if I was looking for it or if it was natural, but it's the way I felt. Anytime a leaf blew across the street, I would feel it and watch it. And you would just sit there because I guess you feel like you're so dead inside, you notice all of the life around you. Any rustle or the sky and the people walking around, and you're just you're feeling like you're watching this movie in slow-mo. So for me, because I was in the worst state that I never even knew the human, body or emotions could sink that low. I felt, that I was in God's hands. And there was a time where I was purely in God's hands, because I just didn't I had no faith in myself. My soul was gone. So.
How did you come out of that time?
I think a lot of ultimately it was as simple as time. And I talked about it a lot because I had to, because there was such a social taboo on grief, and people wanted, they expected that you went crazy. They expected that you were tarnished goods, that you could never be helped. And I think, with working with the girlfriend group that I'm in touch with everyone, is that sometimes your words and what you're going through can help so many people and inspire them and realize that you can sink to the bottom and you can climb up that ladder again. And you just have to you have to maintain authenticity while you're doing it. You have to eat. You have to drink water. You have to go out, even if you don't want to. You have to watch TV and study, and read and educate yourself and look forward and open yourself to new and different things. And obviously, finding Judaism in my deepest despair and finding a community here of immigrants like myself who were totally open to my story. Finding the support group. And I think being in Israel, a big reason I chose to stay in Israel was because I could walk around and tell someone what I went through and they could understand. They can say, I lost a soldier too. I lost my sister. I lost my brother. So I felt like I had this one big support group, whereas when I went home to Oklahoma, all of these people, the majority of us at the time, the only time we lost someone was to drunk driving, which is a completely different way of filtering a death. And so it was just time. And I thought when my father and Siki first died, I literally thought I would be better in 3 to 5 months because I never experienced grief before. I had no idea that it would take years and that every new situation afterwards would be, emotionally heart-wrenching, like getting married, you know, which is so exciting, but at the same time very scary because it marks the end of, you know, this chapter of my life. And I'm marrying a guy who I'm madly in love with, but it wasn't the guy that I originally thought I was going to marry. And how did you know you can fall in love with two different men in a 3-year period after so much loss, but find so much happiness? And how do you balance that, you know? And so I guess I just filter it like, you know, like I feel, you know, Tsiki around me. I know that this is what he wanted. I know my father would be very proud of me. And I think with these memories, it gives me a very strong will to move forward. Like it's a spoonful of destiny.
I often ask people, you know, what's the first time in your life you feel like you had to rely upon God? Do you feel like that situation was it for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say the entire period, but in many periods it was like, you couldn't even ask anyone else to save you, you know? You couldn't find the one, even like money or whatever, there wasn't someone that could save you at that point. No donation, no money, no trip, no drugs, no whiskey would ever take that away. You just had to basically just ask, like, help me wake up tomorrow morning and help me look at the sky and find something very beautiful about this world, because if I don't, then, like, if there's no beauty, then what's the point of me breathing? And then secondly, what I always told girls from the support group as well was that when you're in that despair, you find strength, and a lot of people turn religion away. So I couldn't speak to them in terms of, like, you know, trust in God or put your faith in God and these things. Like, no one wants to hear that when they're grieving. And I also said, if you're feeling this way now, whatever you feel, if someone lost you, all these other people will be feeling the way, you know, that you do. So it's like you have to wake up tomorrow and you have to get better, because as a young woman, the world, like, you're symbolic of fertility, of the future, and all these things. And if you don't move forward and on with your life, all of these people the story is much, much sadder. You can use the story and you can inspire and you can move on and you can cry when you need to cry, but you can't let people see that, like, you can't just, I guess, wade in the pool of sadness, because, like, then everyone around you is depressed too. And people hurt and people want you to be happy, you know? So you have to find any vice that you can to, like, climb up that ladder again, I guess.
Tell me about the man you're going to marry.
David. David's a Londoner, and we met in Hebrew school 3 years ago. From another, Tsiki had an English guy in his Miluim unit who I was friends with, and he was much older. Not much older, he's gonna hate me if I feel like I'm only 4 years older than you. He calls up David and he tells him that there's this girl that's been through a lot, will you take care of her, you know? And, you know, then after that, usually Dave ends the story of going, and take care of her, I did. But he's an architect, and he's lovely, and he's seen me pretty much from day one. And the road for us wasn't easy at first. There was a lot of, like, get together, break up, Susi, existential crisis. What's going on? Will she ever love again? Does he even love her? He probably doesn't. He probably wants to love other people. And all these things. But he's seen it all. Like, he's been to the graves with me, through Yom Ha'atzmaut, through Yom HaZikaron, and seen my emotions, because the deaths happen around Pesach time. So I'm very, like, tender at that time. And he's come to understand it and accept it. You know, Tsiki's family, because I'm really close with them, and we have this really weird thing going on where we're all friends and we're trying to make it work because, like, this is my life now, my past, my present, and my future. And he's great. He's very calm and, like, positive, and I need that because I become, you know, oh, woe is me, the world is against me, I'm Holden Caulfield, you know. And he's kind of just like, it's fine, you're fine. And we make a great team.
And you're getting married next week?
Yeah, next Friday. Bless.
What are you most grateful for?
I think most grateful for, I don't think I appreciated my family and friends as much as I do now. I think I took it for granted. I'm grateful ultimately that I found someone like David in my life, who, like, someone, like, when you have so much baggage, and I know it sounds really negative, and I don't really perceive myself as negative, but I do understand people's fear about someone who's experienced life that they're not familiar with. And so I was convinced that, you know, 2 years of my life that I would never find someone who, you know, would love me deep enough and also respect the memory of Tsiki as well, because, like, you know, Tsiki and I never broke up. You know, he's never going to be my ex. He's always going to be my boyfriend, and I'm going to have a husband. And I was always afraid that the person that I met wouldn't care to know Tsiki or wouldn't have felt Tsiki in his life. And I really wanted that because Tsiki was the instigator of my life, you know. So I always look at Dave, and I think he gets quite weirded out. I just do the, like, I'm just so glad you're alive. And I'm so fortunate I can love someone who's alive and around me and breathing, and someone who loves me unconditionally. It's the most amazing feeling. And I think in addition to that, like my mom and my brother who, like, let me convert to Orthodox Judaism and still maintains a very close relationship. I have family who, you know, buys books on Judaism and reads up on the holidays so they know, like, what I'm keeping and why I'm not calling them and what's going on and what's this Pesach. And as my mom said, like, will we be around there for Rosh Hashanah? And I was like, where what? You know, Rosh Hashanah. And then that they could, like, respect that. And it's not weird. It's not odd. I just can't bring up the Jesus thing to Mom because she gets really upset. She's like, Susie, I told you, don't bring up Jesus. Don't talk to me about Jesus. I was like, okay. Well, and then I would say, like, you know, that he's not the Messiah. And then we get in this big, like, funny argument. But so my family's amazing. Tsiki's family is amazing. Like, all of these people around me, you know, they were my lifeline. They were my doctor's visit. And I just never knew that you could be around so many good people at the same time, you know? And I don't know if I was aware of it before, but I look back on it and I see, like, all these amazing spirits around me and these people who are really great. And it just makes me proud that I could be around those type of people, because I do, you know, there's lonely people out there. There's people that weren't as fortunate as I was when I went through my grief. There's girls who were rejected by their boyfriends' families, or rejected by their own parents, or rejected by their peers because no one understood them. And for me, like, all encompassing, like, I really believe that I was one of the luckiest girls because no one turned me away. And even, you know, and Arnie even used to say, like, anything you need, Susie, just tell me. And you didn't really want anything, but you just needed someone to say that, you know, that, like, you weren't alone and, you know, you weren't in this cage and you could do anything you wanted, you know, when you're ready. And so I think I'm a product of, like, a really supportive community. World peace. My greatest, I think, my greatest wish, I don't know. I think for myself, like on a personal level, I think it would just be, you know, to like avoid the evil eye and live just a very simple and nice life without any drama. Like I'm ready to, you know, I'm still at this point where like anytime I get a phone call, I'm still like, what's going on? You know, when's something gonna happen? Oh, I'm too happy this week. Like something bad's gonna happen. So I think my wish would be just for a very simple life without drama, and for my family to convert to Judaism and move to Israel. And a car. I want to be able to afford a car. I don't know. I think how I'd answer that, because like I'm tattooed in these things, people always make these general assumptions about people, which has taught me never to judge, because it even happens, like very educated people have decided that I'm in this box and this is a typical outcome for a typical beginning. And I was like, well, given the fact that there's no way that a girl born in El Paso, Texas was supposed to end up in Israel, I think when you look at my portrait, I just want them to, you know, assume, just like any other of the portraits in the book, that like these stories, you can never, they're so different from what you assume. And that, you know, there's always, it's everyone's job to have a happy ending and make their own happy ending. I don't know. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.